and trying to figure out what we would want to have if we were capable of thinking like a country. Because I actually think Canadians do that. I think we're capable of thinking about what's in the best interest of the greatest number of Canadians in most regions of Canada. How do we have a national strategy that looks after the people of Canada and helps our economy and keeps us prosperous while not, killing us later? That's basically the kind of equation that I think a lot of people can resonate with that. So if we were thinking like a country, one of the things one would imagine is that we want an energy strategy. And we don't have one. We have no energy policy whatsoever in this country, which aligns with the fact that we don't have a climate policy either. We also don't have a transportation policy. I mean, the numbers of things we don't have policies. You can fill in the blank with almost anything in a sentence that starts like this. Canada is the only country in the G8 without a blank policy. You fill it in with cultural policy, housing policy. Yeah, shut up. We don't have an energy policy, a transportation policy. We don't like policy. When you have policy, what happens is you can't get ad hocery and you can't get corporate rule. And policy is a very dangerous thing. If you actually have evidence-based decision-making where you try to absorb all the evidence and then put in place a policy that will guide all three levels of government to pull in the same direction. Policy alignment, municipal, provincial, and federal, is the ideal, where everybody agrees on a policy and then moves in that direction. So rather than rant about policy in the abstract, let's look at energy policy. Currently in Canada, we have what we're told is Stephen Harper calls calls Canada of 2014 an energy superpower. We're told we're an energy superpower. Okay, an energy superpower, I might suggest, doesn't import more than half the oil it uses. Just a thought, call me crazy. An energy superpower might not be importing, it used to be more than half, it's roughly half. Ontario East imports all the oil it's using from Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Nigeria, Kazakhstan, and a declining amount from Norway, because the Norwegian North Sea oil is going down. So we import about half the oil we use. The Hibernia is mostly exported to off Newfoundland, Labrador. We have conventional oil as well as non-conventional oil sands production. Now the oil sands production, we're told, is the greatest thing that ever happened. Now, there is an argument to be made that and it was made not by me or even initially by Tom Mulcair. Actually, it was made by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in their 2008 report to Canada. This is an elite think tank of the wealthy countries on Earth. And I was by that point, I was leader of the Green Party and gearing up for the election campaign, and was fascinated to hear that the OECD, that I regard as, an elite rich club kind of conventional establishment advice, was noting that Canada really needed to price carbon and stop subsidizing carbon. The history of the oil sands is not a history of bold entrepreneurs willing to take large risks. The history of the oil sands is a history of federal and provincial subsidies. The history of the oil sands is Ralph Klein at provincial level choosing the lowest royalty rate for production of any country on earth, 1%. At that time, Venezuela was 70%. So 1% was the lowest royalty rates anywhere on the planet. Once you, and then at the same time, this came in 1996. 1996, just to cast your mind back, oil was selling for less than $30 a barrel. In 1996, the production in the oil sands was less than 500,000 barrels of oil a day. And to give it a bit of a boost, when oil is selling for less than 30 barrels a day, the most expensive barrels of oil on earth at that time were produced by digging up the ground really, really deep and trying to pull out soil within which you'd find about 10% of bitumen, which you would have to pull out with lots of water, a lot of additional energy and heat. In other words, on a free market basis, nobody wanted to develop the oil sands. You needed lots of subsidies. You needed low tax rates, and so not only did you have the lowest royalty rate on the earth from Ralph Klein, federally in 1996, Jean Chrétien created an accelerated capital cost allowance, which gave oil sands producers phenomenal discounted tax rates until such time as they were actually profitable. So there's a tremendous government-led effort to start developing the oil sands. And actually, not to start, but to take it farther. So at the time that they put this money forward from the Canadian public, there was about as I said, less than 500,000 barrels of oil a day. And they projected that maybe by 2010, they'd get to 1 million barrels of oil a day. They hit 1 million much earlier than that. In any case, the debate about the oil sands has been skewed, I believe, by the failure to examine these basic economics. Nobody was going in there and developing the oil sands on a market basis. It needed subsidies. It needed to disguise the fact that, and this is not even talking about the environmental costs. This is just on a pure cash basis. This was not a profitable enterprise. The other thing that the OECD report pointed out, which I thought was quite what everyone wants. Okay, so OECD, at this point also the International Energy Agency, and also the World Bank now and the International Monetary Fund are all saying that governments all around the world have to stop subsidizing fossil fuel production and put a price on carbon, neither of which is Canada doing at this point. So the oil sands project, such as it is, also had another impact picked by the OECD, which is something called Dutch disease. This is when people get, people like Joe Oliver, need to calm down, because whenever anyone says Dutch disease around Joe, I worry about his health. He gets very upset, and it's not good for him. So the Dutch disease is a term that comes from when the Netherlands first discovered North Sea oil and started producing, remember, shells, Royal Dutch shells, they had a lot to do with this. They were developing the North Sea oil, and suddenly the value of the currency, the guilder, became more and more valuable against other world currencies. So the domestic manufacturing sector within the Netherlands collapsed because it couldn't export anything, because everything from the Netherlands suddenly cost more for other countries to buy because the guilder had gone up in value. That's what's called Dutch disease. Neither Tom Mulcair nor I nor anybody I know who understands the economics of this has ever said that Alberta is a disease. This is how they distort things. It's like when Al Gore said that the Athabasca oil sands use the atmosphere as an open sewer. They then said he called Alberta an open sewer. Now he didn't. He pointed out quite rightly that nobody is paying tipping fees for dumping pollution into the atmosphere. They're just doing it, which is basically like treating the atmosphere as an open sewer. The way that language gets conflated in this debate, again, I pay a lot of attention to words, which is why I call them oil sands. But I also think we need to pay attention to whole sentences. And when somebody is using the oil sands have created a mild case of Dutch disease in the Canadian economy, which is what the OECD report said, and they then linked that with, this is before the recession. Remember, this is going to be important, I'm going to keep coming back to this 2008 recession and how it's impacted pipelines and energy policy and everything else. But up before the 2008 recession even hit, the OECD was saying that Canada had lost a couple 100,000 jobs in manufacturing and pulp and paper because of the rising Canadian dollar, which rose a lot compared to the US dollar. It actually became more valuable than the US dollar as it rose with exports of bitumen. So, on an economic basis, it's not all great news. And if you're thinking like a country, you'd ideally like to produce oil sands at the same time that you have people producing other things for export. And the way to do that, and there's a lot on this if you want to just pull out a book from the library so I don't spend too long on this sidebar, is if you take the money off the table, and Anthony Gafford has written about this a lot. This was Peter Lougheed's plan, was that Northern Alberta's bitumen should be developed on a managed basis, on a staged basis, so that you would take whatever revenue, and he wasn't planning to put it at 1%, but whatever royalties you were collecting as a government, put it aside in a heritage fund. Keep it for a rainy day. Don't spend it, and don't use it. Don't have your government living on oil rents. That is the analysis that Andrew Nikiforok has explained